Hello, class. Welcome to the final program of the semester. And by final, I mean final. It's the last one you're going to do. It's the last one you're going to turn in. It is also the most difficult one out of everything we've done so far. This effectively covers everything you've learned this semester, from variables to input to conditional if switch case statements, loops, nested ifs, nested loops. You'll see everything pretty much. Adding variables and displaying it, all that you'll see in this project. Now, as with every project, your best bet is to not look at the whole project. Like, you'll look at this whole thing and be like, wow, this whole thing's huge. Anytime you take on a project, whether it's programming or anything, look at it in little parts. What is the first thing I need to do? What is the next thing I need to do? Don't worry about the entire list of tasks. What is the next thing? Move on to the next, move on to the next. And you'll be surprised at how far you go if you take it one little piece at a time. It's also not as scary. You know, building a house is scary. But if you do one task at a time, it's not quite as bad. What do I have to do? Build this entire thing. No, you have to do whatever the first major thing is. In this case, make sure you have input. What's the second thing you have to do? Well, make sure I display the menu. Well, what's the next thing? Well, I need a loop. And then add it one little thing at a time and make sure it works. You never want to sit there and just write the whole thing, never check it until maybe 4 hours in, and then you decide to run it and find out that the whole thing's broken, mess, it doesn't work. If you had done a little bit, run it, you would have known there was an error. You could have fixed it. Moved on, run it. Maybe there's an error, fixed it. If you wait too long and write too much, you run the risk of there being tons of problems with it and it being really hard to figure out where that problem is. If I write, if a program runs and it works, and then I write one line of code and all of a sudden it doesn't work, probably my money's on the one line of code I just wrote. If I wrote 100 lines of code or copied and pasted and set it up and now it doesn't work, well, I've got 100 possibilities that have screwed it up as opposed to just one. If that makes sense. Alright, so here's your project. This is going to build on the fruit loop. In fact, it is basically the fruit loop again, but magnified a little bit. It is the fruit loop within the fruit loop. In this case, the final loop. Or you could call it the grocery loop, because not only do we have fruit, we also have vegetables and snacks. And a display of some math. So let's talk about what you have to do here. So your first thing you have to do is display this menu or something to that effect. The numbers can be different if you choose, but exit, buy fruit. If you want exit to be at the bottom, that's fine too, as long as everything's there. Now, when I click or type in 1, buy fruit, it should take me to this menu. Apples, peaches, pears. And I'm going to sit on this menu. Notice I made it shorter than the original Fruit Loop for your benefit. Uh, Apples, you bought an apple. Peaches, you bought a peach. You bought a pear. And it's going to keep staying here until I hit back. Now, if I hit back, it's going to exit this loop and come back up to the main loop again. And then if I go to fruit again, it's going to take me back here, loop, come back up. If I go to vegetables, it should take me to vegetables, which is here. And it's going to loop until I hit 0. And it's going to take me back. Buy snacks will take me to the snack menu, where I'm going to stay until I hit 0, and it'll take me back. Now, if I hit 0 one more time, I close the whole program down. If I hit 4, it's going to display the shopping list. Now, the shopping list will be this. I have prices right here in this column, and we're keeping track of the number. You did that in the previous project. Now, if you had trouble with it, I hope you copied the solution down and went through that, because you're doing the same thing here. it is exactly the same. Anytime I choose apples, you increase the apple variable. Anytime I choose peaches, you increase the peach variable. Uh, the only difference is this time, much like the Fatty Burger program from our very first project, where we had a number of burgers, a price, and we did some math. You're going to do the exact same thing here. In fact, straight from program one, it is almost exactly the same. Uh, Only the format's a little bit different. Doesn't have to look perfect, uh, but all the little menu items should be there. So there you go. And then, of course, the grand total is the total of all the totals, which, again, we did in the Fatty Burger project back in the day. Now, here's roughly kind of how you should break this down, I would suggest. Now, as I said, build this in parts. What is the first thing you need to do? What is the second thing you need to do? Well, number one, and I always find this helps me, uh, as I've probably said many times, make a little list of things you got to do, and then go down the list, jotting each thing you've done. So first off, I know I need user input. That's the scanner J option pane. I know I need to display the menu. I know I need a loop that ends when I type in 0. Uh, we've done that before. So loop until 0. 3, display menu. 4, user input. And kind of all of those are kind of tied together. So for 2, 3, and 4, you'll probably have to kind of do those together. So I type in 0, it ends. I type in 1, for now, nothing will happen. It'll just display the menu again. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, 5, I'm going to go to the fruit menu. Now, to go to the fruit menu, I need a new loop, basically. This is going to be a nested loop. I'm going to have a loop inside of this. So, effectively what this does is I'll need, a new variable. And I will see, actually, user input loop until 0. For that, I will need to declare a loop variable of some sort. Int end equals 5 or -1. Boolean end equals false. Whatever variable I'm going to use. A new variable for the second loop. I can't use the same input. I have to use a different input for this. Otherwise, I'm going to screw up my main loop. So, new variable for the second loop. And then you're doing the exact same thing you just did. Basically, if statement. So actually, I kind of, let's see, user input 6. Let me adjust that a little bit for you. 7, so it makes a little bit more sense. If statements. If my choice is 1, then I go to the fruit. Then I have a new variable for the second loop. And then guess what? 8, display fruit menu. 9, user input. You may say this looks familiar. If statements. If you look carefully, we have, your loop until 0. In this case, new variable for a loop, and loop until it is 0. It's the same. Display the menu, user input, if statements. You're doing the exact same thing again. Now I would focus on the fruit menu. That is the first thing you need to worry about. If the fruit menu works, the rest of it is honestly the exact same operation. So my suggestion, get the main loop running. Only worry about if they choose 1 fruit for right now. Once that works, and this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they start copying and pasting fruit, vegetables, snacks, all of the menus before they've even got the first one working. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to have a lot of broken code, and you're going to get frustrated. Focus on one thing. Don't even copy and paste. Even if you think, yeah, I got it, no problem, it's easy. Just focus on this one until it works. Because you'll be surprised. Uh, and you'll be surprised at how much easier it is if you get this working and then you just add in the next one. And if the next one fails, then you can just undo it and try to see where you went wrong. If the first one works, you're doing the same thing for the second. So in this case, 11, well actually, we're still here. If statement, so if 1 is chosen, add 1 to apple variable. Oh, and that is something I should probably add up here. 1a variables. So this would be the shopping variables, I guess you can say, or grocery variables, all set to 0. Much like we did in the fruit loop, where we had variables set. We're going to have variables for all of these. And there are a couple of different ways to approach this. If you dealt with arrays, you could use that, and this would be significantly easier. Well, not easier. It would be more complex, but it would be less writing. But there you go. Maybe we'll see a version of that later if anyone wants it. All right. And, of course, this would be the same for 2 and 3. And then, guess what? 13, we do our next if statement. If choice is 2. Well, that's the veggies. Like so. And then you do the exact same thing, copy and paste pretty much this there. And then you'll do the same thing for the snacks. So, same as fruit. And then 15 would be, of course, snacks. 16 be same as fruits. And then 17 on this list of things for us to do would be the final costs. Which would be, if I choose 5 in this case, I think it was, or 4. Cost if you choose 4. Like so. And you see I abbreviated a bit of this, but, I mean, you can expand on this. It's just copy and paste that again, basically. The only difference is it wouldn't be apple, it would be cabbage or popcorn. That's really the only difference. Now, for the costs, there's a couple of ways to approach it. You can declare your variables. If you want to declare prices, you can. You don't necessarily have to. You will probably and should declare totals, though. And I would suggest that those totals run inside that if statement. You set all the totals at the start, and then you just net out that print. The word apples, and then the apple variable, plus the actual price, which is 50 cents per apple, and then 1 times 50 cents is the total 50 cents. 2 times 40 cents is 80 cents. And it doesn't, again, like I said, have to look perfect, although you can use the, I think it was the text formatter to make it look a lot better than it is. But it's effectively just like this. And then I, plus add something else. Features times 0.40 or something like that. And of course you can space this out. It's going to display however you have it. If I give this 3 spaces, there'll be 3 spaces between this. If I leave it like this, the number is going to be jammed right up against apples. But that's effectively what you got to do for that. Now, that is your quick tutorial. And of course the total will be all the totals added together, which is why you should make a apple total, peach, pear, cabbage, and all these variables, and then add them together for that grand total. I would not do that in a print statement. I'd actually make variables for that. It'll be significantly easier. And that's just the same as just, double apple total. equals 0.5 times apples. There's your total for that. You add them up. Fairly straightforward, hopefully. Hopefully this alleviates everybody's question. I'm hoping this little review will help. But of course, if you still have questions and whatnot, just let me know, and I will be more than happy to do my best to answer them.